see, it's 7:01. We got about 53 people participating right now. I got a little list of announcements. I figure I can start. I'll just begin by welcoming everyone to our February 2021 evening program, the North Coast chapter of California Native Plant Society. California Native Plant Society, also known as CNPS, is a nonprofit membership-based organization that brings together science conservation, education, and horticulture to save native plants and their habitats. I am Andrea Taylor. I'm currently the Vice President of our local chapter, and on your screen, I'm labeled California Native Plant Society 3. I am one of just many of our volunteers that help keep our club active and relevant. I'd like to go over just a little bit of Zoom etiquette. Just so you know, we are recording the meeting. We'll post them later to our website. Please stay muted unless you're speaking to the group and called upon. You can use the chat option at the bottom of your Zoom screen to communicate with me or the whole group. You can also use the raise your hand button. And then you can have your video on or off, your choice. A lot of the speakers like to see their audience. So next I'll share with you our Yes, I Would Like To list that we usually pass around at our in-person meetings. But today you get to see it on a screen share. So you can use the chat button, message me if you would like to be notified of any of our programs and walks, or other activities. You could also email Carol or give Carol a call. If you're interested in propagating and taking care of plants at our freshwater nursery, volunteers are always welcome there. If you'd like to buy any plants, we have them for sale right by our nursery at the Neeland Glen Farm Stand. Every day, noon to 6. If you need any advice about growing these plants in your yard, we have native plant consultants. See here the contact for Melanie. We also need to find someone help us schedule speakers for our evening programs. Currently, Carol has filled in the position, but we need someone else to take over those duties. So if you are interested in any of these topics, please contact us via this email or send me your information through our chat on this Zoom. Does anyone have any plant observations they'd like to share? Any stellar sightings or something exciting you've seen recently? You can send me your observation through your chat, or you can raise your hand visually. I'm going to say, Carol, you up.
If everybody's being shy, I'll say that I was excited out here in the Lanphier Dunes, where I've walked a million times, to find in one of the swales that's full of sedges, but somewhat short sedges, a good patch of grape fern, Septridium multifidum, which it's not a rare plant, but it's not one of the ferns you see a lot of places. So it's always exciting to me to see it.
I do see in the group chat that Lori saw a Trillium, forgive me if I butcher this, Curry Bayashi on the Redwood Creek Trail. I'm not familiar with that species.
Kurabayashi is the trillium that around here that's maroon colors, sometimes dirty yellow to maroon. It doesn't key out that in Jepson, but if you look at the flora of Oregon, it's very clear. It's Kurabayashi is our maroon trillium.
So there's no other mention of a sighting of a plant, but Larry was curious if anyone's seen any Scoliopas yet. He's yet to see any at Trinidad State Beach.
Good question. That fetid adder's tongue is one of the very earliest things to bloom. It could be blooming. I know Chris Beresford had it blooming in her backyard last month.
I guess you can find some Scoliopas, fetid adder's tongue in Sunnybrae. They've already gone to fruit, so you'll find the Slinking Pod, Humboldt Redwoods Park, and Russ Park. Speaking of parks, we have Katrina Henderson joining us from California State Parks, and she'd like to talk to us about the volunteer work days.
Great, thank you, Andrea. Yeah, hello everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. So we have state park work days every month and multiple events throughout the month. Our district, the North Coast Redwoods District, which I'm a part of, we range from northern Mendocino. So I have events down in Sinkyone State Park and the Lost Coast, which is beautiful if you've ever gone down there. And then all the way up to Crescent City in Tala Dunes State Park. So they mostly focus in invasive species management, but they're a great way to get outdoors and help protect all these native plants that we all love. So if you're interested, you can email me. Maybe I can pop it in the chat if that's an appropriate way to go. Andrea, great, I will do that. And we have an event this Saturday at Little River State Beach, which we had a wonderful walk last month through CNPS out there. So if you're interested, this Saturday, February 13th, from 9 a.m. to noon at Little River. So we will be removing European beach grass and potentially yellow bush lupin, but probably European beach grass. There might be a chance to see our wintering flock of snowy plovers out there and see some really cool native plants as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Lastly, I wanted to tell you about some backcountry press Zoom meetings you can attend. So there's one tomorrow evening, and that is going to be every Thursday through March 11th. And that is tomorrow is a lecture by Michael Kaufman. Many of you may know his name. He was our former program chair here. And then he also, if you go to backcountrypress.com, Tuesdays, they offer Botanical Tales, and that'll be 5 Tuesdays until March. So if you need any more information about joining those webinar series, go to backcountrypress.com. Tonight, we will feature 3 different speakers. The first speaker is Carol Ralph, our acting program chair and our chapter president.
Okay. So I'm going to find my screen share. Which you'd think I would have had ready, but not quite. There's the start. How's that look? Okay, so I'm acting program chair, but I'm also the first speaker here. So by way of introduction, I'll just say that the 4 of us presenters are all amateur explorers of a botanical bent who have enjoyed many days along Forest Highway 1 and Six Rivers National Forest. I'm going to share with you some of the fun places to visit in the north segment of that road. Ann Wallace wanted to share with you a wonderful winter day and a magic autumn day. She couldn't be here, so I will show you her pictures. And after that, Pete Haggard will share 5 of his favorite plants from this route. And then Donna Wildearth will share her specially chosen favorite flowers, fruits, and shots of the seasons. So ready to go? I would like to start from Arcata. Most of Arcata looks west toward the Pacific Ocean. However, from Lanphier Dunes out on Arcata Bottoms, we look east to the rugged mountains behind us. This view goes from the land of the Wiyat around Humboldt Bay to the land of the Wheelcoot and to the land of the Sunway. These indigenous people stewarded this land, and it has sustained and inspired them for thousands of years. Some of us here today, after a few hundred years of bumbling, thoughtless, and truly evil history, can say that we share the inspiration and are appreciating the beauty of these lands in our own, hopefully respectful ways. That is what we 4 want to share today. Some of the beautiful, fun things and places we have found up on the farthest ridge visible in this picture, way back there. And if we zoom in on this bump, there you see the place, there you see Horse Mountain. You know that's it because it's got those radio towers on it. And most people call the whole area that I'm talking about this evening, Horse Mountain in a sort of general way. If you decide to go up there, you might want to take some of these navigational aids, like the map of the Six Rivers National Forest, and then Michael Kaufman's Conifer Country, and Reese Hughes's Hiking Humboldt Volume 2, and Ken Burton's Hiking Humboldt Volume 1. These all have valuable information and maps to help you get to the fun places and not get lost. But I'm going to start talking off my good old AAA map to show you how we get from Arcata to Horse Mountain by going out 299, up the Mad River, over Lord Ellis Summit there, then down across Redwood Creek and up through Oak Woodland and Prairies past Vista Point to Berry Summit, the blue arrow. Here you are on a long north-south ridge. My arrow keeps disappearing. A long north-south ridge on which we are traveling tonight and on which the indigenous people traveled long before. Titlow Hill Road from Berry Summit follows an old travel path, becoming Forest Highway 1 when it enters Six Rivers National Forest, which is the pale green. At its north end is Horse Mountain, this green triangle with its radio towers. Then a little farther south is Titlow Hill, which is not as large, but it's hidden under this blue dot, which marks Cold Spring, which is on the west side. Farther south, you come to the small Spikebuck Mountain and then Grouse Mountain, this triangle. And then you keep going past Board Camp and the road zigs over and down, down, down the long South Fork Mountain. And you descend into the town of Mad River down here on Highway 36 and on the Mad River itself. And you can make your way home from there. Some of the sites that you will hear about today are listed on the right side of your screen. And you might like to know that this drive is featured in Michael Kaufman's Conifer Country book because it's a fun way to see conifers. There are no official trails in this area. In the National Forest, you can stop anywhere and walk wherever. But being free to walk anywhere doesn't tell you where is a fun place to walk. So the Horse Mountain Trails Alliance formed. We scouted around and found fun walks following existing roads or old dozer paths or cow paths. We named these walks and their associated landmarks. These walks are not official Forest Service trails. Don't expect them to be maintained or signed in any way. They are just ways to go that we're sharing with you. And the places I will show you today on this map, see here comes Titlow Hill Road. It comes up to the intersection where these roads all come together. Horse Mountain Mine Road, which goes down here. Indian Butte Road, which goes off of the road up to the radio towers. The radio towers are up here at the top. The saddle is right here. And Trinity Alps Vista Loop is a loop around like this. And farther south, Cold Springs is down here. And even farther south, a little off the map, is where Spikebuck Meadow is. So what do these places look like? Well, first, be alert that in winter, Forest Highway 1 can look like this. In snowy conditions, the road is not plowed except for where I'll show you in a minute. And the people who go up there, well, parking is very limited when the snow is up there. And there's likely to be a lot of inexperienced drivers, but you can do snow things there. When there's not snow, the place you arrive to is the place we call the intersection. It's the place you can pause and consider and look around. It has no signs announcing it, and you can see here the serious challenges the Forest Service has in maintaining signage. At the intersection, you're at 4,720 feet elevation. More recently, a welcoming kiosk has been installed to establish a Forest Service presence and provide information. And the new botanical area signs remind Christmas tree and firewood cutters that this is not the place to do those things. Behind these trees over here is where the road goes up to the radio towers, which are the real reason that the road gets plowed as far as the intersection. It gets plowed to there, and then it gets plowed up this road going to the radio towers so that those important communication infrastructure can be maintained. The rest of Forest Highway 1 is left to the weather. So the kiosk tells us about the botanical area, the Horse Mountain Botanical Area, and the serpentine soils and vegetation that it protects. Porterford Cedar is one of those species, and protecting it from Porterford Cedar root disease is one of the concerns. Hence, gates on 3 of the roads are closed and locked during the wet season to prevent vehicles spreading spores of the disease in the mud and water carried from elsewhere. This map of the botanical area shows where Porterford Cedar is found with gray stippling. The red balloon points to the intersection at the top of Titlow Hill Road, coming up here, intersection. Horse Mountain Mine Road goes down here. The road to the towers goes up here, and Indian Butte Road goes off to the left, straight north. When you get to the saddle over here, that's the trailhead for the Trinity Alps Vista Loop Trail, which goes on a way not marked on this map around here. And Forest Highway 1 continues on south. The botanical area was established 22 years ago. And here I quote, "For the protection of unique botanical values, for educational purposes, and for recreational use compatible with these values." So it's for 3 things: botanical values, education, and compatible recreation. The unique botanical values are its strongly serpentine geology and the resulting special vegetation, which you will see a taste of tonight. You can look forward to a future evening program entirely about botanical areas in the Six Rivers National Forest by the botanist John McCrae. And if you want to learn more about serpentine soils and their plants, tune into our wildflower show the week leading up to the first weekend of May, because we're going to have speakers on that subject. Okay, if you've got to the intersection, there are 2 fun places you can go walking. Just 100 meters off to the west is Lookout Rock. And when you start there, you step off the parking area immediately into the unique botanical values of the Horse Mountain Botanical area. Much of it is Jeffrey pine woodland, which you see here sprinkled with fawn lilies. I think they're California fawn lilies. And here's the violet that grows in the serpentine soils, the wedge leaf violet. See how the leaf is wedge shaped. And here we have a Mycoheterotroph. These are vascular flowering plants with no chlorophyll. They get nutrients by attaching to a fungus that is attached to a tree or shrub in a mycorrhizal relationship. This one is a very young pine drops, Pterospora andromedea. It will get tall, maybe 2 to 4 feet, with each little flower hanging down. I have seen almost all the available species of Mycoheterotrophs in our county in Horse Mountain area. It's a great hunting place for them. If you are interested in them, tune in to the April evening program of the Humboldt Bay Mycological Society, when Leah Bendlin from Oregon will speak about marvelous Mycoheterotrophs, the beauty and science of floral fungi freeloaders. So we're almost to Lookout Rock out here at the edge, but just before you get there, here's this wonderful bear grass. And there's Lookout Rock. It's one of a series of outcrops at this elevation that go all along the ridge. From its top is a glorious view all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And there are fun plants on it too. And here is a lip fern, a Chilanthes, and a stone crop, a sedum. The second place that you can walk from the intersection is Horse Mountain Mine Road, which you see the beginning of here. You can walk down as far as you want and turn around and come back up. In the dry season, you can drive down if you have the appropriate vehicle. Up ahead in this picture on the right is the area that is the quarry. And you can see here a list of the conifers that you can easily find in this Horse Mountain Botanical area. So it's good conifer hunting. Now notice the wet ditch along the right side of this road. Wet ditches mean fun. And later in the season, this one sprouts leopard lilies, Lilium pardolinum. If you go farther down the road, you come to an actual mine, a hole going into the mountain that's been gated off. And this one is decorated with a wonderful California angelica, Angelica tomentosa. And it spews out more water. So there's another wet ditch that goes down farther. And this has California lady slipper and this beautiful lotus, which I think is Hosakia oblongifolia, but I'm not sure on that. Now we're going to go up to the intersection and towards the towers. We're less than a mile up. On the left is Indian Butte Road, which might be labeled 6N18. Indian Butte Road is a great, easy walk on a level gravel road through both Jeffrey pine woodland on serpentine soils and Douglas fir on regular soils. It has grand views to the coast, both incense and Porterford cedars to compare. And look, you can walk 6 feet apart on this road, so don't worry about being too close. And what Sydney's looking at in this picture is the tiny, rare, pink margined monkey flower, Erythranthe trinitiensis, the subject of the rare plant treasure hunt we were on that day. It would have been a mimulus in the old days. It's a very ephemeral annual. And this was a treasure hunt to document the extent of this known population and to look for other populations. So continuing down that road, you curve around the ridge from the west side to the north side. And on the north side is another wonderful wet ditch. See all the moss. And here you have Porterford cedar. This little saplings in this picture are all Porterford cedar. And western azaleas on the hillside just above. And here you can also find California lady slipper and five-fingered fern and other things, including more leopard lilies And in the left-hand picture, the little white head is a sticky false asphodel, Trientalis occidentalis. And there's that beautiful lotus again. The forest has bare grass as well, which you can see just opening up here along with the azaleas. And here's our group of treasure hunters farther down where the woodland levels off a bit in the Jeffrey Pine woodland. The road continues into Serpent. Let's see. If you wander off to the right, you can walk up the old ski slope to the towers on top of Horse Mountain, and then walk down the old access road to your car at the beginning of the route. But if you continue down straight, you come to the non-serpentine soils and the different kind of forest. Okay, now we're going to go back to the main road past the towers to the place we call the saddle. This is the saddle between Horse Mountain summit, where the towers are, and a small hummock on the east side. And here we're looking east. This is the trailhead for the Trinity Alps Vista Loop, a walk descending across the south-facing side of the ridge, down here on the right, and goes around the backside, and then it comes up here on the left. So going down on the right, you look across the canyon to Horse Mountain Mine Road. And when you're on the ridge, you do indeed have views of the Trinity Alps. And when you get to the north side of the ridge, you have Western azaleas and Porterford cedar mixed in with your Jeffrey pine and Douglas fir. So the saddle is also frequently used for target shooting. Here on this black truck, you can see the gun mounted on top. He's aimed at the target over there on the other side of 6N36. In fact, it's hard to talk about the Horse Mountain Botanical area without talking about target shooting. Right here, the conflict and the danger of shooting and hikers is obvious with a known trail here. At other shooting sites like the quarry and the old mine buildings on the Horse Mountain Mine Road, the problem is also real. The forest botanist exploring the slope above the quarry on Horse Mountain Mine Road suddenly found herself in the line of fire. And rock climbers accessing a well-known climbing area just over the ridge could easily find themselves within range of today's high-powered rifles. What's more, not all shooters confine themselves to the targets they brought. Several of the trees around here have died from being shot. Not all shooters remove their targets. You see one old thing here. It's a rare shooter who collects his empty shells. So target trash can be spectacular. The empty shells abundant, and the embedded lead in the soil surely voluminous. Target shooting is clearly incompatible with protecting the unique botanical values of this place. Furthermore, the forest plan, the governing document of the forest, says that a special interest area such as this is to promote public use, education, interpretation, and enjoyment of the special interest values of the area when such activities do not harm the values for which the area was designated. Target shooting falls well outside any of these promoted activities. Now we're going to return to the flanks of Horse Mountain to Forest Highway 1 and travel south 2.5 miles to an inconspicuous road on the right that goes down to Cold Spring. You can see there's a sign problem here still. The parking area is small and awkward, and recently logs were placed to contain cars that were determined to explore the forest and meadows. The actual spring is behind me, the photographer. It is a pipe inserted horizontally into a place cold, clear water usually comes out of the ground, although in some recent years, I have seen it not flowing. From here at the parking, you can walk 2 places. One is left of the springs down to the meadow, and the other is off through the white fir forest in front of you. Here is the way down to the meadow. In early spring, it is an amazing carpet of Hall's violets. And mixed in a rocky place is Purdey's Fritillary. See with the flower that's with its head pointing down, its face looking down. And the meadow itself is edged and mixed with oak woodland, rock outcrops, serpentine outcrops, clumps of shrubs, and a stream. The boundary to private land is marked with one sign, but no fence. You can botanize here for days. Here are a token 2 flowers from this wonderful spot, a checker lily and a large seeded lomatia. And the rock outcrops overlooking Redwood Valley, just below the meadow, are always rewarding for both plants and for views. If from the spring you go off into the white fir forest, you come across more fun Mycoheterotrophs. Here is a species that emerges with the flowers pointing down, putting it in the genus Monotropa. This is pine sap, Monotropa hypopithys. You will also find fringed pine sap, totally different genus, Pluricospora fimbriolata. Here in the left picture, you can see the fringe on the petals, and notice that the flowers are not hairy inside. In the same patch of forest, you will find a wonderful scattered stand of phantom orchid. Here it is right beside the pink western coral root, or Merton's coral root, which is which are all mycoheterotrophs. You can guess that a forest rich in mycoheterotrophs is rich in mycorrhizal fungi. Now, if you continue north along the contour of the hill, you will walk through oak woodland that has been overtaken by conifers. The cessation of controlled burn by the Native Americans resulted in conifers establishing and shading out the oaks. In this picture, we see evidence of a rogue firewood cutter who totally off limits drove his truck down into the forest and has been cutting out the dead oaks. One of the most exciting days I have seen at Cold Spring was a windy September day when the white fir cones were disintegrating and dropping a rain of seeds into the forest and meadows. On the left is a cone partly disintegrated. The seeds sit right on top of the scales, and you can see 2 seeds in my hand. And on the ground to the right is a carpet of seeds and scales. So this is how white fir ends up everywhere. If you keep walking north of Cold Spring, a good destination is Split Rock, here seen from the north side. And here we are in the split looking out. And beside it is a good patch of dog violet. From the top, you can see the coast, as well as an interesting assortment of plants, including this jewel flower. And here are a few more plants from our explorations in the Cold Spring area. I like this set of 3 yellow violets. On the left, prairie violet, Viola primorsa, and in the middle, our familiar stream violet, Viola glabella, and on the right, Shelton's violet, Viola sheltonii. Shelton's violet is particularly frugal with its flowers. I have seen leaves by the hundreds, but rarely seen a flower. Here's a lovely monk's hood captured by Anne at a place we call Secret Spring. And under the edge of the trees around Secret Spring is a little clump of pine foot, a rare Mycoheterotroph. Here in the freshly opening flowers on the left, you can see the horseshoe-shaped anthers that are distinctive. And in this picture of the same plant, a little bit older when the flowers are open, you can see the fuzzy interior, which distinguishes it from the fringed pine sap easily. And you can see that the petals are separate all the way down, which distinguishes it from gnome plants, which I actually have never seen on Horse Mountain. Cows are one of the features of the prairie habitats here. It is truly upsetting to find they have eaten trillium flowers and are trampling violets in the forest, but we have to consider their role in maintaining the prairies. Without any burning and without any grazing, the diverse meadow at Cold Spring might be usurped by the non-native grasses that are here with us now. The diversity we see is a product of many years of grazing leases that specify the number of cows for which months of the year. If the grazing regime is controlled as in the past, we can hope the meadow plants will continue to thrive. Okay, now we're going to go farther south along Forest Highway 1 to the place called Spikebuck Meadow alongside Spikebuck Mountain. This was a favorite butterfly hunting spot. Notice the riot of mule ears flowers on the right, and in a serpentine outcrop in the middle of this meadow are fun things like this shorthorn steer's head, Dicentra passiflora. You know that something fun is happening when you see a field trip like this, looking at things on the ground. In this case, it might have been these plants. The long strap-like leaves are some wild onion, and the cute little succulent leaf plant with the pale pink flowers, I suspect is Claytonia saxosa, Brandegee's spring beauty, which I've never seen anyplace else. It's not a rare plant, but I haven't seen it. So it was a great place. Then a few years later, here is what we saw when we drove by. Mule ears had all the flowers eaten off, and there was a flock of tatty sheep there. And the next year in the early spring, here was a bad omen. And Pete had seen a pile of potting soil left here. And by that fall, the gate was closed. The ground was trampled by vehicles. Remember those parts of Forest Highway 1 that go through private land? This is it. For all those years, the boundary was ignored and irrelevant, so no one noticed. Suddenly, the owner saw a new use for the property, and it was transformed and defended. I call this the parable of Spikebuck Meadow. If we had paid attention to the ownership of this piece of land we knew is special, we could have taken steps to ensure its future. So I would like to interrupt this program of natural beauty to burden you with responsibilities. First, a responsibility to yourself to be prepared when you travel in the national forest. This is not wilderness being full of mining and logging roads, but yes, it is minimally developed great outdoors. There are no facilities, no shops, no residences, except the occasional pot grower. In many parts, there is no cell reception and there's minimal signage. The road is narrow and winding with blind curves, little or no shoulder, and steep sides in places. And it is used by fierce logging trucks. So be prepared. Also, you have some responsibility to our national forest. Be the eyes there. The national forests are ours, the people's. The Forest Service staff needs our help to manage them appropriately. Six Rivers National Forest staff are all committed to doing a good job. However, they are grossly understaffed considering the vast resources they are charged with managing. Six Rivers now has an acting supervisor sharing its supervisor with the neighboring forest. It has fewer district rangers than districts. It has one botanist to manage a botanical resource stretched over rugged terrain from the Oregon border to the headwaters of the Mad and Eel rivers south of Ruth Lake. They need our eyes. The point person for reporting things you see in the Horse Mountain-Grouse Mountain area is the district ranger in Willow Creek at that phone number. An effective set of eyes, you should know the rules. You should know what is allowed and what is not. This is the land of many uses. Mining, logging, and grazing are all allowed, but managed with rules. As you have seen, recreation of many sorts is happening here. Botanizing, photography, hiking, bird watching, butterfly hunting, bee watching, rock climbing, road biking, mountain biking, gravel biking, camping, disc golf, snow play, skiing, snowshoeing, sightseeing by car, picnicking. All these are compatible. Target shooting and hunting are not. In the botanical area specifically, the continued tolerance of target shooting is clearly contrary to the forest plan and the area strategy. So finally, we can help change the rules and the protocols. Bureaucracy is heavy in the Forest Service. It requires patience and a daring administrator to make changes. Citizens can provide data, feedback, suggestions, and plans, not simply criticism. Citizens can advocate at higher levels for greater funding for the Forest Service. And thirdly, a responsibility to the planet. That's a bit grandiose, but here I mean, know who owns the land you are enjoying so that you can influence its future. Don't let it be the next spikebuck meadow. So that's what I implore us to do. Now, to get us back into the spirit of this wonderful place, we're going to move on to a collection of photos from Ann Wallace. And first, we'll see her Winter's Day. This is the Trinity Alps, but from higher up on Forest Highway 1, not on the Trinity Alps Loop, Trinity Alps Vista Loop Trail. It was a wonderful snow that they had, whatever the year was she went there. And there's the skiers on Forest Highway 1. And farther out the highway in the wide open. And with sentinel trees along it. And here's some snowy tree portraits. A little western white pine. And these trees look like they're really heavy. And some wonderful icicles, sparkly icicles. And this looks to me like it's probably on a white fir. See how the sprays are a little bit flat, as opposed to these, which are clearly on a Douglas fir. And snow on a deciduous tree. This would probably be an Oregon white oak. And here on some evergreen broadleaf trees, probably down Forest Highway 1, Titlow Hill Road area. It's probably a canyon live oak on the left and a madrone on the right, looking down into Redwood Valley. And a snowy sunset. And then Anne wanted to share with us a beautiful fall day when they went for a bike ride on the Forest Service road called 5 and 10, which we call the 5 and Dime. In beautiful colors. Our big leaf maples provide the most yellow for our fall colors. And even when they're littering the road, they're beautiful. And at Cold Spring, there's also a beautiful fall landscape looking down over the oak woodlands and prairies with the sun going down. And here's the season we're all anxious to arrive, nice full summer. In this case, near Split Rock, sitting in the meadow looking down into Redwood Valley. And that was Anne's slides. And now is Pete Haggard here and unmuted, because Pete, we're going to start your slides. Pete, did you unmute?
How about that?
Hey, there you are. Good job. Okay. You have to tell me when to change the slide.
All right, I will. Thank you. Thank you very much, Carol. That was wonderful. All right, I've been going up to this area for a long time, and this is kind of a rare plant for me. This is a Nelson's Campyon, and it didn't used to be that way, but a number of years ago, Michael Metzler and his crew decided that it was a new species, and they named it after a local botanizer here, Mr. Nelson. And it is a beautiful plant if you can find it out there, and really appreciate it. Okay. The next one is probably something that we all know, cat's ears. And it's a plant that grows from the coast. I think I've seen it at Patrick's Point, and it occurs in the mountains also. It doesn't show much as far as foliage, but when it opens up the flowers, it is really something special. I'm not sure why, but all these years that I've watched it, I've never tried to grow it down here, but one of these days, hopefully, I'll figure out, get some seed and see if I can get it to grow. Next, please. The California globe mallow, it is now a rare plant. I think it was in the early 1970s that an area up on US Forest Service was logged, and I was involved with that. And this is Grouse Mountain Road. And I've continued to go up there to watch this area as the forest has returned, and also the shrub layer. And then at some point I was asked to do a survey up there on them, unofficial one. And in the 80s, it was quite common. There was no competition, particularly Ceanothus velutinus, the white flowered Ceanothus, was very common, but was low enough that the plants were able to do well. And 2020 is extremely hard to find now because it's been grown over by Ceanothus velutinus in the trees in the area. And unfortunately, these areas that I'm familiar with are private land, and cattle, for whatever reason, really love this plant. A side note is there's a bee called Diadasia, or the turret bee, that takes pollen from this plant and fertilizes it, and is a obligate. It needs this plant, or the ones in this plant genus, to survive. And it's unique, and you can find it nesting in areas because the female builds a little turret around the entrance to where she is laying her eggs and collecting pollen and nectar. Next. Large flowered blue-eyed Mary. It's because it's a large flowered one, I really like it. And there's a slope on Grouse Mountain that faces south, but it gets a lot of shade from the conifers. And I would guess maybe a 20 to 30 foot area. It looks like the only thing there is the blue-eyed Mary, very beautiful plant, and obviously a great pollinator plant for bees. Next. And do we want to show the full plant first? Okay, this is kind of one of those isolated plants that you can look at, and it's so beautiful with the gray leaves and the stature, and has one of the prettiest flowers, I think, of any of the composites. It's really a beautiful plant. And that the first picture you saw of the bud is in all ways, this is a very beautiful plant. It's also a food plant, the leaves, for at least 3 species of butterflies that lay their eggs on this plant. And when the flower is opened, it's unusual not to see a pale swallowtail or many fritillary butterflies feeding from it. And if you're lucky, towards the end of the day, quite often male bees will dig into it and spend the night there. That's because male bees are not welcome where the female has her nest, and they spend the night in there where it's nice and warm next to some food. I think that's it, Carol.
Okay. Whoop. Never mind that one. Next, we're gonna shift screens to Donna. So I have to stop screen share. Are you clicking on, Donna?
I'm ready to go. I'm
Okay.
going to say a few words before I start sharing screen.
Okay, take it away, Donna.
Okay. Before I get to some pictures, I want to start out with a few words about my experience with Forest Highway 1. I think it was probably in the fall of 1999. I was introduced to this area by Jerry and Gisela Rohde on one of their Natural History Museum tours. And since that time, I've been up there almost every year, sometimes on CNPS field trips, sometimes with friends, often by myself. I try to go at least in mid-July to catch the Washington lilies when they're in bloom. And I also like to get up there in mid-October because there's some very nice fall color. It's great to have such a different environment so close to the coast. I love the plants, I love the vistas, and especially that fragrant mountain air. Just really enjoy being up there. So in preparing for this program, I did some research on the CalFlora website, which is a great resource. On their website, they have a search tool that's called What Grows Here. And in this feature, you can define an area and then see which plants have been recorded in that area. So I went on there and drew a polygon to cover the entire length of Forest Highway 1, which is roughly 54 miles from Highway 299 to Highway 36 in the south. It's roughly 54 miles. So I drew a polygon enclosing that area, and then I searched to see what plants had been recorded there. And what I found was there are almost 900 species of plants that have been collected and recorded in that area there. This includes 140 annual herbs, 456 perennial herbs, 134 shrubs, 50 trees, species of trees, and a number of grasses, ferns, and vines. Really a staggering variety of plants there. They list 10 species of ribes, 7 species each of manzanita and ceanothus, 5 species of vaccinium, and all 3 species of lady slippers. I also want to point out that this area has been heavily botanized for over 100 years, at least in part because of its proximity to Humboldt State University. I checked the Consortium of California Herbaria for several plants I've seen along Forest Highway 1. For Allium falcifolium, which is the coast flat-leaved onion, the first record was recorded in 1915 by Joseph Tracy. The most recent specimen was collected in 2007 by Kara Witt. For Penstemon newberrii, which is a favorite of mine, and I will have some pictures of that, the herbaria records show 5 plants collected along Forest Highway 1. The earliest was collected in 1888 by 2 botanists, Chestnut and Drew. Don't have any information about these people. So 1888, Then there were 3 separate collections made by Joseph Tracy from 1930 to 1941. The most recent collected Penstemon newberrii was in 1990 by R. Spellenberg. So there's a long history of professional and amateur botanists who have explored and enjoyed this area. Okay, now I will get into share screen and take you along with me on the route that I usually travel, getting off at Titlow Hill Road and then traveling south toward Mad River. So if you go there, this is along Titlow Hill Road before you get to the area that Carol referred to as the intersection, which is where Forest Highway 1 officially starts. But just between Highway 299 and Forest Highway 1 on Titlow Hill Road, there's an interesting collection of plants, especially early in the season. So this was taken in April, our fairy slipper, also grand hound's tongue, and here's some bay laurel with flowers, and our lovely mountain dogwood. Those were all taken in April. If you go up there a bit later, you're going to see along the roadside, in some places, a nice bank of goat's beard, which is also sometimes called bride's feather. And it grows along the roadside in a drainage ditch where it's pretty moist. I grow this plant also in my backyard. It's a wonderful plant. I'm always glad to see it. So here's some heuchera alum root growing along Forest Highway 1. And later in June or July, you will see some Western mock orange, Philadelphus lewisii. And these are good sized shrubs with these beautiful white flowers. So that's all before you get to the intersection. And now we're going to a place that Carol's described already, Cold Springs. And if you go left of the actual spring and head down the trail, this is what you'll see. And it opens out to this nice meadow prairie. And in spring, you can find some great clumps of Trillium albidum under the trees. There's a beautiful stand of the Oregon white oak there. Here's a clump of sedums and Indian pink. And there's a close-up of the Indian pink. Carol already showed you one picture of this phantom orchid, but it was really fun when we were up there because there was this shaft of sunlight beaming down like a spotlight on the plant. So it really was just glowing. Now here's some flowers that I've taken at different places along the road. One year there was a really nice display of wallflowers. And in the trees, there's this area that has a plant called vanilla leaf. And here's the lily spot. So there's a stand of Washington lilies here that I try to get to every July. They're usually blooming in mid-July if the deer have left a few to enjoy. Because oftentimes the deer will go in there and just snip off the flower buds, which is very disturbing. But I guess, you know, they're entitled. I went up there last summer, and when I saw the clump I couldn't see any flowers. And I thought, well, I'm not going to see any this year. But then I looked down a little further, and here was one that was sort of protected by a shrub, so the deer didn't have a chance to get at it. These are just gorgeous plants. They're fragrant, and even the leaves are highly decorative. In this same area, not too far from the lilies, there's a little orchid, Piperia onolascensis. It's this one here. You have to really keep your eyes open for it. It's not a plant that jumps out at you. But here's one that does. Carol took this picture of me a number of years ago. And this is called monument plant because it's pretty monumental. And here's what the flower looks like. It's very interesting flower structure. Now, I've never seen it blooming there again since Carol took that picture. I see the leaves, but I have never had the opportunity to see the flowers again. Here's a patch of dog bane along the road. And this is a plant that the butterflies love. So here's a nice swallowtail enjoying the dogbane flowers. And also a fritillary or fritillary butterfly on the dogbane. This is something I've only seen on one trip up there. There was this mat, low-growing mat of purplish flowers. And when you get up close, it turns out they're monkey flowers. I think this is probably currently the one that's called Diplocus nanus, which means dwarf. But en masse, like that, they're quite striking. This is one of the bulb flowers, native bulbs, Brodea elegans, also known as the elegant Brodea. And firecracker flowers in front of some beautiful Oregon white oak leaves. This plant is Grand Colomia. Don't see it too often, but I'm always glad to see it. It's got some interesting pale orange flowers. Now, this is just a little bit off of Forest Highway 1 itself, down one of the other Forest Service roads, and it's mountain maple. A lot of you are probably familiar with our big leaf maple and our vine maple. This is our third native maple that grows in the area, but we don't see it nearly as often. And there's a close-up of the leaves. Here's an orchid growing in a drainage ditch along one of the roads. It's most likely the Sierra bog orchid with some lupin in the background. There's a little area off to the left of the road at one point, almost like a little valley, and it's filled with these beautiful yellow California poppies. Quite striking and really nice to see the yellow ones instead of the orange ones. A beautiful penstemon. I think it's possibly Penstemon latus, which means the gay penstemon. And here's a pale swallowtail on coyote mint, Monardella. And there's another fritillary butterfly enjoying the Monardella also. If this is a really aromatic plant, if you run your fingers over the leaves, you can see why it's called coyote mint. Here's a real striking buckwheat. It's called Eriogonum compositum, like the composite flowers. The first time I saw it, I thought it was some kind of giant yarrow, but it is a buckwheat. And it's another one that butterflies are very fond of. Pete identified this one as a Chalcedon checker spot butterfly. Very, very colorful, really enjoying that buckwheat. Here's a really striking plant, and none of us have been able to figure out what it is. Some kind of aster family plant, possibly an erigeron, but quite flowery. And paintbrush really stands out. So here's a penstemon relative, and the genus is Kekiella. So some of us know the red flowered Kekiella, which also does grow up here, but this is a Kekiella lemonii. And interesting flower, interesting plant. First time I'd ever seen it. Here's another plant that's real attractive to butterflies. You can see two butterflies in this picture. This is the nettle leaf horse mint. And there's a fritillary butterfly enjoying the horse mint. Here's another picture, a close-up of the Iliomna or California globe mallow that Pete was talking about. This one was growing right next to Forest Highway 1, but several years ago. I haven't seen it since. It's also known, I found out, as wild hollyhock, because hollyhocks are in the mallow family. So it's nice to think of this as our wild hollyhock. Beautiful flowers. Okay, here's Penstemon newberrii. This is the one that had a recorded specimen back in 1888. It only grows, as far as I can tell, in one section off the southern part of Forest Highway 1, but it's quite striking with those raspberry colored flowers. And I also like the common name Pride of the Mountains. So now I'm going to have a couple of pictures of plants in fruit that you can see up there. This is blue elderberry, and you can see that this is just loaded down with the elderberries. Bitter cherry, one of our native prunus species. There's quite a lot of this along the road there. And this is madrone berries. This would be in October. And you can see that this tree is just loaded with berries. Here's a close-up. These are dogwood fruits. Here's some native honeysuckle fruits. And here's the seed pods for redbud. And just a couple of shots of fall color. The big leaf maples have that beautiful yellow color, but one of my favorites is the dogwood, and they turn this sort of peachy rose color, which is quite striking. And these pictures were actually taken not on Forest Highway 1 itself, but on one of the offshoots called Friday Ridge Road. And that's one of the best places I've found for fall color. Another dogwood that's just starting to turn color. And then one year when I went up there, there's the dogwood with fall color, and it's snowing. So I'm going to close with this obligatory sunset shot. This is another picture from Ann Wallace. And now I'm going to turn the program back to Carol for a few closing comments.
Donna, that was just a wonderful assortment of flowers, insects, fruits, scenery. Thank you so much. So as you have seen, the landscape accessible from Forest Highway 1 in Six Rivers National Forest is a source of inspiration, exhilaration, physical challenge, and scientific interest for a large and growing number of people. Those of us who have been there know how much more is waiting to be discovered. Places, plants, butterflies, gulls, rocks, etc. Those of you who have never been there can anticipate an exciting introduction in the future. We especially issue the Botanical Challenge to find the lost species that Donna found records of, as well as new species to the area. And we hope to carry on working with Six Rivers staff to make this area easier for more people to enjoy. If you do go enjoy it, save your best photos to share at our December evening program in December 2021. That's planning ahead. We'll look forward to seeing you. Thank you, and we're happy to answer questions and maybe even hear some of what you would like to say about the Horse Mountain area. So, Andrea, have you been scouting for questions in the chat?
I have. I don't have any questions I found in the chat. Just a lot of thank yous
Okay.
and wonderful photos. And yeah, everyone has really been enjoying the collaborative effort. And I agree seeing all the different routes and birds and, or not, sorry, but butterflies. And it's just been really wonderful. I will wait and see if there are any questions, but I did want to announce our upcoming field trip. I forgot to announce that we have a chapter field trip Saturday the 27th to Great Falls up to 299. And if you would like to go, contact Carol for more information, and you can find it on our website at northcoastcnps.org.
A quick comment. Thank you. This is a really great program. And just to share with everybody that from 299 out to 36 and all those little roads that go out, forest roads, not all of it is on forest land. It's a lot of it's private property. So please be considerate in when you're going out and botanizing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa, for that reminder.
Know the rules.
So I see that someone asked what kind of camera. I don't know if she was talking about my photos or Ann's or Pete's or Carol's. I don't have a special camera. It's a Nikon Coolpix. It's just a simple point and shoot. So that's my camera.
And mine also is just a point and shoot, and there probably were 3 different versions of point and shoot in my pictures. But Anne has a fancy camera, you know. Yeah. So Anne's pictures have a lot more behind them than mine. And Pete has a real camera too. We can't hear you, Pete. You have to unmute for us to hear you.
Yes, I have a fancy camera, Carol, and so I take fancy pictures. The only thing fancy about it is I got it to take pictures of insects. We're generally small, and it's called a macro lens, and it allows me to get really either tiny flowers or tiny insects and see them. So unfortunately, it's a really heavy and cumbersome camera, and I'd rather have a point and shoot, but because of my interest, that's what I have.
So is Dan Seeley out there? Dan wrote and said, I forget what he said exactly, but it sounded like he was going to have lots to say or lots to ask. Dan, if you're out there, you can unmute.
He was here earlier. I saw his name. So someone is asking if the phantom orchid is a type of mushroom. No, it is what Carol was talking about, a Mycoheterotroph, and it's in the orchid family. It is not a fungi, though the Mycoheterotrophs plug into fungal networks. But the orchid itself is not a mushroom. And
So Mary Ann has a question that Pete can answer. She asked, would you all suggest plants that are good butterfly attractors?
Yes, of course I would. Remember, you don't necessarily want to attract adult butterflies. What's more important is their larva host plant, the ones they need to exist. So for us on the coast, one of the best plants you can grow is willows. Numerous butterflies lay their eggs on our local willows, so they're extremely important to them. So if you look up a list of local butterflies, look what their larval host plants are and try to use those. An excellent pollinator plant for our area is the beech buckwheat, which I grow here in Fieldbrook, even though it's a ways, but it's a very healthy plant, produces a lot of flowers, pollen, and nectar, and is the host plant for the Akmon blue butterfly, which is quite common up on Forest Service 1 and also common right on the coast here. So don't get me started. I'll stop there.
And Mary Ann is asking, is there a native plant sale on Valentine's? I guess she means Valentine's Day. And the answer is no, not then, but you can look forward to a native plant sale the first weekend of May. We're going to have the in-person sign up for appointment type sale the first weekend of May. And if you go to the Kneeling Glen Farm stand, you can find native plants there any day between 12 and 6. And if there's something else we have you want, you can write to the email that was on that first slide, or just contact any of us and we'll put you in touch with our nursery manager. So we don't want anybody to be held back in their progress by not having the native plants they want.
you know, I'm going to read a note that Lori Lawrence put up. A note of caution, the south end of the road was in bad shape last year. 54 miles felt much longer.
I suppose you could phone some number in the Six Rivers National Forest and find out if the road's been fixed in any way. And if you phone the local ranger district, you sometimes get more up-to-date information about local conditions. Down there, the ranger district is the Mad River.
Benjamin says that if anyone wants to see Silene nelsonii, he would recommend Hennessy Road on the Six Rivers National Forest. Also some private property.
We have seen that at Gray's Falls also.
Mm.
Well, I hope everybody is planning when they're going to get to go up to Horse Mountain. If we all went up every month for the whole rest of this year, wouldn't we know a lot? And we'd see a lot of wonderful things. So I'll hope to see some people up there. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I see kale. Kale, I wonder if I identified my violets right. Well, good night, people.
Good night, people.
Thank
Wonderful to
you.
see you.